Greetings, my fellow YouTube nurses. This is brought to you by MightyNurse.com. Check them out, don't forget. They got cups, they got mugs, they got drinks, they got shirts, they got pins, and they have a free account. You guys should scope them out. It's free. They accept all nurses, LVNs, CNAs, registered nurses, LPNs, nurse practitioners, anything that ends with nursing. Scope them out. It's awesome, beautiful, and sickening how much nursing stuff there is on there. It's awesome. So scope them out, guys. So I want to talk about today why nurses eat their young. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why I think they do that, and I'll give you my experience on how it was for me as a male nurse. So first and foremost, let's go with the question of the week, saying, after a few months of nursing, I'm trying to figure out why nurses eat their young, because I've never worked in such a backstabbing, grubby, narcissistic, and egotistical swamp of nursing. Woo, that's very graphic. Think about that. How did you deal with nursing individuals eating their young, and what was your experience? Thank you. #1 subscriber. Cool, appreciate it. So, first and foremost, why do nurses eat their young? I'll give you 4 reasons why, and this is what I've been through because I worked at a care home, skilled nursing facility, med-surg floor, tele floor, and ICU now, CVICU. So I've seen all types of nurses, good, bad, horrible, great, awesome, and loving type of people that it's just awesome. I've seen so many types of individuals, and I'm just trying to figure out why nurses eat their young. So my first one, what I would have to say, is a new grad. Think about it. You've been a nurse for 10 years, someone else comes under you, 2 weeks of experience, and all of a sudden, they're thinking they know everything. So the nurse who's teaching them, they're gonna be like, a little weirded out by it, but you're gonna be upset. Someone's taking your job after 10 years, you put in your own work, of course. So, and they also look at you as your powerlessness. You're weak, you don't know what's going on, you don't have that much knowledge. So they're gonna be picking at you, they're gonna be asking you these questions. Now, if it's a good preceptor nurse, they're gonna be talking to you, not getting upset. But these nurses get a little weird about it. They've been 10 years under their belt. That's when they look at you, oh, new grad? So they're gonna try to eat their young. The second one I would have to say is jealousy. Okay, you're working with a room full of estrogen, all right? You got 80%, 90% of women, it's just full of estrogen. There. That's all. You can take that as it is. You know where it's going to happen after that. When you work with a bunch of women, there's going to be a lot of, you know, just drama or whatever you want to call it. With guys, I guess it can be drama too, but with women, there's just going to be more of that. So that's why it's good, guys. More nurses, more male nurses in here. We need to get more of you guys in the field to just spread it out, make it even. So anyway, I would have to definitely say jealousy is another factor of why these nurses eat their young when you're working with a lot of women. It's just how it goes, guys. The third reason I would definitely say is anger of life circumstances. Now, basically, who would have thought being a nurse you'd be cleaning poop, wiping nalgas, putting in a Foley, cleaning sputum, dealing with snot, and dealing with blood every day? Did you think that? No. So when you deal with that every single day, some of these nurses get burnt out. Oh man, I have to deal with this, I have to deal with urine, I have to deal with feces. They just get upset, okay? And sometimes it's not good. They channel the anger out on these new nurses. You go clean that. You need help? No, you go do it as yourself. Oh, what? You can't do it? Time manage that properly, because that's how us nurses do it, or whatever they say. So that's just how that's like me coming home kicking the dog. The dog didn't do nothing, they don't deserve a kick in the face. I love pets, I love dogs. So you don't do that. So as a nurse, they get very burnt out of just realizing, man, we had to do this for the last 20 years. So that's another reason why they eat their young. They tell them what to do and they don't help them or so forth. You know, they'll be in the back texting. #4 is micromanaging. I would have to say a lot of nurses like to do that, okay? Like for instance, if you're passing a med, they want to make sure you follow your 5 rights. If you don't do that, they're going to write you up or tell the manager or tell the charge nurse, oh yeah, this nurse doesn't do their job right. You're supposed to do 7 rights before you pass a med, right dose, right med, right patient, and so forth. So they like to micromanage. How many of you guys actually know a nurse that likes to micromanage? I know a couple. So anyway, I would have to say those are the 4 main reasons why nurses eat their young. I'm not saying it's right. We should stand up and actually say something about it. But those are the 4 reasons why I think that. In my personal experience that happened to me since I was a guy, male nurse, it was kind of nice because I've seen other nurses get eaten by their other nurses. I mean, they were just telling what to do, how to do it. They were not yelling at them, but they kind of just got upset with them a lot. And with me, I just said, yes ma'am, no ma'am, whatever. And if they're giving you constructive criticism, I never took it personal. I learned from it and I try not to make the same mistake twice. So that helped me, and also being a guy, just saying yes or no and just dealing with it. I never talked back to my preceptor. I never said no, I couldn't do that. I try to time management wisely. I try to definitely pass my meds on time, did all my right checks. And if I had a question, I would pull her aside and just talk to her about it. That's how I dealt with it, and my experience was great. So it's just kind of how you work it and how you do it. But yeah, nurses eat their young, and I think those were 4 of the main reasons why it happens. But like I said, guys, bite your tongue, just handle it and do it, because when you're a new grad, it's only going to be for a few months, and after that, you're going to be knowing what you need to know as a nurse. So everyone goes through it. I'm not saying they should, but if it does, talk to your charge nurse, talk to your manager, or talk to your supervisor about it. Let them know that this is not right and it shouldn't happen. And then you speak. Go in the chain of command, guys, if you guys feel like that's something you guys need to do. Anyways, that's the topic for the day. Check out mightynurse.com. Like I said, they invite all nurses. They got free cool stuff. Check them out. Check out their account. You won't be upset because they got everything to do with nursing. All right, my fellow YouTube nurses, like I said, links on the bottom. Mightynurse.com. Scope them out. Peace.
This is the VOA Special English Technology Report. Nurses spend their lives helping other people recover from injuries and illnesses. Yet nurses suffer a surprising number of injuries and illnesses themselves because of their work. In fact, the United States Department of Labor says nursing is the second leading profession for on-the-job injuries. It ranks higher than construction work and law enforcement. Only freight and stock movers report higher injury rates. Nurses and other healthcare workers do a lot of heavy lifting on the job. Lifting and moving patients improperly leads to sprains, strains, and muscle tears, leading causes of injuries to nurses. Gretchen Gregory is an instructor at the Sinclair School of Nursing on the Columbia campus of the University of Missouri. She says back problems are the greatest threat that nurses face when they lift or move patients. You're talking about people that have handicaps or limited mobility that need much assistance. And we have untrained people to do that assisting, and that puts them at risk for hurting their backs. Ms. Gregory leads a new training room where nurses can learn to keep themselves and their patients safe. She says most nurses lack training in how to lift patients. That's not something that we teach in school, but that's when falls happen, and that's when nurses get hurt. The Safe Practices Room has special training equipment, including a life-size mannequin doll. This patient can be filled with water and made to weigh as much as 159 kilograms. Ms. Gregory says most American hospitals have lifting equipment to help nurses move patients. But she says the equipment is often pushed back in a corner somewhere, unused and forgotten. She says the Safe Practices Room teaches the importance of using the tools and skills available. The training room also seeks to improve communication skills and other practices in a setting designed to copy a busy hospital or clinic. As Gretchen Gregory puts it, if we provide an environment where everything's nice and quiet and they can give their medications or they can communicate to a physician when there's nothing going on, that's not really a real-life setting. They have to be able to do it with some distraction. An unidentified donor gave $300,000 to build the new room. The University of Missouri describes it as one of the first of its kind at a nursing school in the United States. You can find pictures of it at voaspecialenglish.com. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
Greetings, my fellow YouTube nurses. I'm up and close. We're talking here. We're going to get very personable, okay? So first question I had was, how do I do a 12-hour shift in the ICU, CVICU, trauma neuro center, anything like that in the critical care unit? And so I said, you know what? That's a good question. Let's roll with the punches. So that's one of the questions I got from one of my subscribers. Thank you for subscribing, liking, hitting that sharing button, and just letting everybody know about my channel, guys. So first and foremost, how do you do a 12-hour shift focusing on your patients? So I did a video before, and I put a link on the bottom how to deal with a 12-hour shift with med-surg tele patients. So that's on the bottom. This video I'm going to talk about critically ill patients in the ICU. So for my night shift nurses and my day shift nurses, when you get up, you better slam that coffee, because if you don't, you are going to be hurting. When the doctor, family member, the patient, anybody asks you a question and you don't know what's going on, drink that coffee. Stay alert. Drink a 20-hour energy drink. Okay, they're already out. Go buy them. Just kidding. They're 5-hour energy drinks, but I'm just saying, drink your Red Bull, your coffee, whatever you need, okay? Just make sure you're on point. When you get report, you definitely have to drink a coffee. I don't care how much it is, because if you get report and you're sluggish, you're tired, disoriented, lethargic, you're not going to make any sense. And when the doctor asks you a question, you're not going to know what's going on. So my favorite is Honest Tea. That's the best. It's organic. I'm not trying to sell the item or promote it, but I'm just telling you this is probably the best thing I like to drink. And sometimes I'll drink coffee. So night shift or day shift, when you go, get your report. Now for ICU, our reports are head to toe. I'm talking about very thorough, very in-depth. You have to know what's going on with your patient. So it's going to be to us, okay, you can take it however you want it. It's a like 5, maybe 7-minute report, because we're talking about everything. Patient's history, patient's background, why they got admitted, what's the changes going on, their current vital signs, their neuro, their cardiology, their pulmonary, every system. We just keep going and talk about it, and we discuss maybe the plan of day, what's going on with the patient, what we need to do to talk to the doctor to change anything. Also, we need to figure out how the patient's going to get better, so we can get him out, kick him out like this, boom, just get him out. Okay, so to the med-surg floor, get him better, right? So the report is going to last a while. So when you get report, sit your little booty down, get your coffee, be alert, go write everything that's very important. I use the 4-color system pen, the blue, red, black, and green. So when I get report, everything's black already. I use the red for any changes when I'm getting report. And then during the day, I'll use the blue color, and that just lets me know what I've done on my shift. So that's what I do for my report sheet, and that's right when I get on shift. And then I get my second report sheet on my other patient. Remember, these patients are critically ill, so you have to know everything, top to bottom. So when you do rounding with the doctor, and they can come at any time, you give them the information, what's going on, what you think we need to do for the patient, and what we may add for the patient care. The doctor will love you for that. So knock out the reports after you drink your coffee, and that's within the first hour. Right after that, go in there, assess what's going on with the patient. If it's cardio, if it's pulmonary, if it's a multi-system, which usually they are for ICU patients. You have to know what drips they're on. Make sure you know what the drips. Make sure you're in the right patient's room. And when you're checking all the drips, you make sure they're at the right settings, at the right titration mode, at the per MD order. And then you also see what drugs they're taking, just to make sure if they're on the drips, if they're urinating every 30 minutes, you want to make sure what's the urine output is, 30 mLs or less is when you want to call the doctor. 30 mLs or more is perfect. That's what you want for the patient if it's the lowest. Now, the orders are going to be completely different. So when you're going, before you assess the patient, after you get report, definitely go through the orders, the last 24 hours, see what's going on with the patient. What have they changed? What have they ordered? What's going on? Read the transcription. That's very, very important, guys. As a nurse, you want to know what the doctor's writing. What's their plan of care? What's their change of condition? What is the plan for them to get out and get better? So you want to go through that. And once you go through the transcription, boom, you have a better signature plan of the patient. You know what's going on. So you can go in there, boom, talk to the patient's family, boom, talk to the doctor, what you want to do. And so you do all that. That's probably, I want to say, a good hour. The second hour, and even before the second hour hits, you already went in there, done the assessment on your patient. Now, don't do a rapid, don't do a quick assessment. You have to go in there and do a thorough head-to-toe assessment. I'm not going to explain how that works. You guys know as a nurse how to do a head-to-toe assessment. Once you do your assessment, we go in, and of course, doctor's going to write new orders, you change, all that good stuff. So you're repositioning the patient, and you have to do that every 2 hours so they don't, get any bed sores, any types of, we don't want anything going on with the patient, so you have to move them. It's always good to do that. And that's probably within the 2, maybe 3 hours. I haven't even charted yet, guys. I know sometimes you want to chart immediately, but first patient care comes, and then after you write everything down on a piece of paper, that's when you go ahead and chart it later. But you want to do that first, and then you start charting. I know they want us to do real time, but in reality, in a perfect world, that would happen. But you just have to go in there. And so once you get your patient care and all that good stuff, You're going back, you start charting. Do your whole head-to-toe assessment, and for us we chart every 3 hours, but the vital signs have to be every 15, every 30, or every hour. It depends on the acuities, how high they are for the patient. If it's a high acuity patient, you're doing it every 15 or maybe every 5. So like I said, look through the orders, and then once you know your patient, what's going on, your hours are going by fast. Give them bed bath, reposition them, talk to the doctor, and you're on point, you're set, you know what's going on with the patient, and your day should run smoothly. This is why I like the ICU. But you always have to be ready and prepared if it's a DNR or full code for the patient. Always look at those orders. Like I said, y'all, I'm making this short, sweet, hard to beat. Any more questions, guys? Like I said, the link's going to be right here if you want to look at my other video about med-surg, tele or patients, assessment, so forth, and how it goes for a 12-hour shift. This video for ICU, I kept it short. We'll just do it one more time. Get your coffee, get your report, make it short and sweet, know everything about your patient. Go over the transcription what the doctor wrote, what's the plan of care, change of condition, what they want to do to get the patient better. Go over the orders, 24 hours, so you know what's going and what you're going to get into. Then you assess your patient thoroughly. Check the drips, what are they on, what are they taking, why are they titrating, what's the per MD order, what is the protocol, and so forth. After that, you go to chart, talk to the doctor when you do rounds so you know everything what's going on with your patient. The last 4-5 hours should be a breeze. My fellow YouTube nurses, peace.
Living among the medical community as I did for weeks was a huge revelation to me. I'd never been hospitalized before. I had never seen the extraordinary daily kindness and heroism of nurses up close. I had never depended on them. For weeks, I was completely dependent on them. I had only one real day and night of pain in the hospital after surgery, and it was a giant order of magnitude, the worst pain I have ever experienced. It is actually an ordeal that many post-surgical patients go through, and I cannot get into the details now because it is just too gross. Trust me, I'm not kidding about that. And if you've been through it, you know what I'm talking about. A nurse named John Frank Ellis got me through that night. It was, in its way, as hard a night for John as it was for me. I've never been more dependent on anyone in my adulthood and never been more grateful. The next night when John came back on duty, I gave him a thank you note in a sealed envelope with some cash in it, a lot of cash in it, a token of my indescribable gratitude. John took the envelope, the sealed envelope, he left the room, and a few minutes later he came back in and he said, my thanks was all that mattered to him. And he handed me back the money. And he told me that it was against his personal ethics and against hospital policy to accept gifts like that. I had no idea. I had no idea I'd crossed a line. This was all new to me. So you can tip people who clean your room in hotels, but you can't tip nurses. I didn't know that. Great nurses don't do it for the money. Yes, they care about and they rely on their paychecks, but they couldn't do the work they do. The great nurses couldn't do that. They couldn't do it the way they do it if the motivation didn't come from the goodness of their hearts. You wouldn't recognize John as a hero if you saw him going to or from work on the subway with his backpack, and John doesn't ask to be treated like a hero. None of the nurses I met want that. They want to make a living that allows them to support their families, and they want to help people in the process, people they don't even know, including people who will forget them. The doctors and nurses I have met have something that most of the rest of us don't have, the absolute certainty every time they go to work that they're going to do something important today, something invaluable for someone else. All the physical therapists who've been helping me learn to walk again have that same quiet kindness, that same dedication. When you watch us on TV getting all caught up in the news of the day, which often means the bad news of the day, it's worth trying to remember that an awful lot went right in this country today. Yes, we have a dysfunctional Congress, but not far down the street from them. We have people working in hospitals doing remarkable things to save lives every day. When's the last time you saved a life? I've never done that either. If you saved a life, a baby, a mother, a grandfather, don't you think you would feel that was more newsworthy than what some angry, ineffectual politician said in Washington today? I'm not sure there's anything we in the news business can do about that, but you can. You can listen to what we think the news of the day is, but never lose sight of the fact that more good things happened in America and the world today than we can possibly report to you or that we know how to report to you. Don't ever lose that perspective. The nurse who spent the most time with me in New York is Shannon Lawrence. Our shared name was less interesting to me than her first name, Shannon. As an Irish-American kid growing up in a place like Boston, I developed an ear for the ethnicity in every name. On our first day together, I asked Shannon how she got an Irish first name. She said her father was wounded in World War II and was sent to a hospital in England for treatment. The nurses there literally did not want to touch the black soldiers in that hospital. Then an Irish nurse came along and took good care of Shannon's father. The Irish nurse's name was Shannon. It would be a beautiful story, even if Shannon didn't grow up to become a nurse, but she did, and so it's a perfect story. My nurse, Shannon, has spent her life sharing the same healing kindness and grace that her father's nurse did. And on my last day in New York, I told Shannon that if I had another daughter, I would name her Shannon.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Japan and Germany have the world's oldest populations, but neither country has enough trained healthcare workers to meet the needs of older adults. Now they are turning to Vietnam for help. This month, 100 young Vietnamese are going to Germany as part of a project to train what are called geriatric nurses to work in the European country. The trainees recently completed a 6-month language and culture class in Hanoi. They will spend the next 2 years in an occupational training program. If the trainees pass the final exam, they will be able to work in Germany as geriatric nurses for another 3 years. Germany is facing a crisis as low birth rates combine with a growing population of citizens who are living longer. About 20% of the population is over age 65, and that percentage is expected to continue rising. This is a problem that Japan also faces. Later this year, 150 Vietnamese candidates will go to Japan for 2 years of training at the country's hospitals. After that, they are expected to take the national nursing exam. Japan already trains nurses from the Philippines and Indonesia, but the healthcare system has been criticized for being too restrictive. All candidates must take the same exam, but it is very difficult for foreign applicants because few can speak the Japanese language. Many Japanese are opposed to foreigners working in some industries. Critics say foreign labor could lead to higher unemployment. But there is little opposition to foreign nurses. In Vietnam, there are not enough jobs for everyone who wants one. Most children are expected to care for their aging parents when they get old. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal. From VOA Learning English, this is the Economics Report. About 1/3 of new nursing graduates in the United States are having trouble finding work. Alexandra Barenshub is finishing a master's degree program at the University of Maryland. She has done well in the program, earning the highest grade point average possible. But she is worried because she has not received job offers. Yet there is hope for nurses who complete studies at four-year schools or graduate-level programs. They have an easier time finding a job in healthcare than nurses graduating from a two-year degree program. Experts say there are fewer job openings because nurses in their 50s and 60s are delaying retirement. These workers are hoping to rebuild the savings they lost a few years ago during the financial crisis. Jane Kirschling is head of the University of Maryland's nursing school. She says weak economic conditions have created tensions in the job market. The number of students entering nursing school has risen sharply in recent years. At the same time, the United States is preparing for the retirement of millions of baby boomers. That is the name given to Americans born between the end of World War II and the early 1960s. Hundreds of thousands of nurses are expected to retire just as people their age need more medical care. Healthcare laws are changing in the United States. Health experts say they expect demand for nurses to care for the sick and aged to grow. They say many older nurses will retire if the economy improves. This would create job openings for younger nurses and recent college graduates. For VOA Learning English, I'm Alex Villarreal.
I'm Susie Mason. I went into work on a Tuesday and I heard a girl talking about how her dog had puppies, but the dog kind of just abandoned them, didn't want to have anything to do with them. And I told Connie, well, my cat just had kittens on Monday, and so I'm like, maybe bring them over, see if Tinkerbell will, accept them. So she brought them over on Tuesday, and we put the puppies in. Tinkerbell kind of looked at them, kind of a little hesitant, but by that night they were all nursing and they're doing very good. The kittens are 3 weeks and the puppies are 2 weeks. The puppies were born on Easter Sunday. They're all doing very good though. They're very cute. Now I don't know if kitten milk is better for the dogs, but it's better than nothing.
As you enter the room, address client by name and introduce yourself to client. Turn on water at sink. Wet hands and wrists thoroughly with water. Apply soap to wet hands. Lather all surfaces of wrist, hands, and fingers, producing friction for at least 15 seconds. Clean fingernails by rubbing fingertips against palms of the opposite hand. After lathering for at least 15 seconds, rinse all surfaces of wrists, hands, and fingers, keeping hands lower than the elbows and the fingertips down. Use clean, dry paper towels to dry all surfaces of hands, wrist, and fingers, then dispose of paper towels into waste container. Do not touch inside of sink at any time. Do not flick your hands to dry your hands. Let's review. 1. Address client by name and introduce yourself. 2. Turn on water in sink. 3. Wet hands and wrists thoroughly. 4. Apply soap to hands. 5. Lather all surfaces of wrists, hands, and fingers, producing friction for at least 15 seconds. 6. Clean fingernails by rubbing fingertips against palms of the opposite hands. 7. After lathering for at least 15 seconds, rinse all surfaces of wrists and fingers, keeping hands lower than the elbows and fingertips down. 8. Use clean, dry paper towels to dry all surfaces of hands, wrists, and fingers, then dispose of paper towels into waste container. 9. Use clean, dry paper towels to dry off faucet and then dispose of paper towels into waste container. 10. Do not touch inside of sink at any time.
When war was declared on the 4th of August 1914, little did Australians know that this would become known as the Great War. Also, little did Australia know that the remarkable heroism of hundreds of thousands of young men who set sail from the shores of Australia would also go on to define the national identity of this great nation, Australia. Also, many of those young men didn't return home, but remarkably many of them did, and they only did so because of the great dedication and service of Australian doctors and nurses. Their stories are no less remarkable and also deserve to be celebrated and recognised by Australians.
8 months after war was declared in Europe, the SS Multan set sail from Melbourne to Britain with hundreds of doctors, nurses and medical workers from around Australia on board. Among them was matron Grace Wilson and Dr Herbert Jamieson Stewart, both from the Brisbane Hospital. Dr Jamieson was a keen photographer. His many pictures tell the story of his war. Far from looking like he was heading to treat those wounded in battle, it almost seemed like he was on a leisurely voyage.
Well, I think he probably felt as though they were, and I think they were looking forward to going to France and probably enjoying time in France, but that got knocked on the head.
Despite leaving behind a young wife and 2 small children, Herbert Stewart, like the young men who enlisted as soldiers, was more than willing to sign up.
And basically for king and country, I guess. It's only more through things that I've read about him in later years, finding out how strong that sense of duty was.
Certainly a wave of enthusiasm at the start for people to volunteer. We know that with the nurses, at least 2,100 served overseas and about 400 stayed in Australia to work in the Australian general hospitals that were here. But at the start of World War I, the Australian Army Medical Corps had 87 officers and about 1,870 other ranks. That expanded enormously during the war. But in the medical profession and in the nursing profession, there was still enormous pressure for doctors and nurses to enlist. And that continued right through to 1918.
Dr. Stewart was posted to the No. 3 Australian General Hospital on the drought-stricken Greek island of Lemnos to treat the casualties from the bloody trenches of Gallipoli, 2 hours sail away. As Matron Grace Wilson, one of Australia's greatest wartime nurses, described it, it was the hospital from hell. When she and Dr. Stewart and the first medical team arrived on Lemnos, there was no hospital. All their medical supplies were in a warehouse in Egypt. It was another great mistake of this campaign. Matron Wilson wrote,
"Things are just too awful for words. We found only a bare piece of ground with wounded men in pain, still in filthy, blood-stained clothes, lying amid stones and thistles. As we lacked tents, beds or medicines, we could do little for most of our patients."
But she and her nurses famously did do something for their patients.
She was fantastic and clearly was one of the great women of the last century in this country. They tore up their own clothing to dress the wounds. They had very little water.
It was 3 weeks before any medical equipment arrived.
I think they made the most of what they had. They must have had pretty incredible minds to make do with some of the things that they'd been used to back home not turning up, and they would have made do with other things. And I think they just got stuck into the work so quickly they didn't have time to worry about it.
You wonder how you would cope, and you take your hat off to all these people. And how would I go? I don't know. You're faced with enormous challenges.
As well as dealing with the critically wounded from Gallipoli, the doctors and nurses of the No. 3 Australian General Hospital also had to deal with the disease and afflictions brought on by the dreadful living conditions, not just at Gallipoli, but at the hospital as well. Dr. Stewart and the nurses all wrote of thunderstorms washing patients from their beds, windstorms that flattened the tents they lived in, snow and slush and the bitter cold of winter necessitating amputations for frostbitten soldiers wearing only summer uniforms at the front.
The men were being treated for diseases and dysentery and different sorts of dysentery and so on, and they had to diagnose which type it was before that they could start curing them.
The pathology was basic but effective. Dr. Stewart went on to write a paper for the Australian Medical Journal on his work controlling disease at the hospital.
And he was obviously fascinated by getting stuck into that and delighted with the results they were getting.
Despite the physical and mental hardships, the mortality rate of 3AGH at Lemnos was just 2%, a credit to them all. Herbert Stewart spent 8 months at Lemnos and returned to Australia after a year, but not without falling ill himself, as many doctors and nurses did during the war.
Amongst the Australian Army Medical Corps, there were 760 died of either wounds, of disease, or were killed in action. Of doctors, there were 85. Amongst the nurses, some 25 nurses did not come home.
Those who did come home slipped quietly back into their old lives.
Mostly they did, and they never talked about their experiences. And what today we call PTSD, we really had absolutely no knowledge of it then. And so the sequel in terms of mental illness and in terms of other disease was probably enormous.
After dealing with so much death and pain during the war, Dr. Stewart embraced life, delivering thousands of Brisbane babies between 1919 until his retirement in 1948. Matron Grace Wilson was awarded the Royal Red Cross for her courage and determination in her management of the hospital at Lemnos. She served in France and went on to become the Matron-in-Chief of the Australian Army in 1925 and served in the Middle East during World War II. She returned to Australia to continue her distinguished nursing career. There is no memorial for this remarkable woman.
Should never forget.
Okay, perfect. And you were both registered nurses in World
Yes,
War
we were.
II? And where exactly were you during the war?
Oh, and where? Before we went in the Army?
Yeah, sure, let's start there.
We were both working in Philadelphia at different hospitals.
Yeah, and one day the telephone rang. It was my sister telling me that she was joining the Army Nurse Corps. I hadn't thought about it. I really had no desire. I liked what I was doing. So I told her to give me time to get in touch with Washington, which I did. I knew they needed nurses desperately. So I told them that we were only thinking of joining only if we could stay together. No hesitation, we would always be together. So we joined.
And once you joined, they kept you together?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
They
we
went
were
in
always
came home
together.
together. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And where did you
Chief nurses weren't too fond of us because they didn't have complete control of us, and our religion didn't help. So they weren't too fond.
Oh, well, okay. So you were a little bit rebellious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well, we had basic training at Fort Meade, Maryland. We had a nice sergeant. We made his life a living hell. And the day we left, he said to somebody else that if he didn't kill the Levitsky sisters, he'd go and kill himself. I mean, we were mischievous, you know.
And we weren't Army material.
You know, but, I mean, it didn't seem like the Army. No, it was. You must remember, this is 67 years ago. You know, it was a different ball game.
And we were quite young.
Huh?
I said we were quite young.
Yeah, we were quite young, and it was an adventure. It really was an adventure because we didn't know what to expect. I mean, here you're a civilian. They put you in boots and they put you in a baggy pair of pants, and you're supposed to march. You know, I mean, well, happy marching.
Well, what was your favorite part?
Actually, I loved every minute of it. I loved the Army. I really did. You know,
I wasn't
with
too
all
fond.
our, with
I
all our
wasn't too fond.
shenanigans, I really loved it.
No, I wasn't too fond of the Army. I went in because of Ellen and what was happening. That helped. But each day I waited to get out, and I couldn't. And that was it.
And my big regret is I didn't stay in. I've always regretted it. Yeah.
And so how does that work with the two of you, knowing that, I mean, you've been together for forever. I mean, so having those different opinions?
Well, you know, you did the best you could, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were there for a purpose. I mean, we weren't there to have fun and games. We were there for a purpose. But until we got acclimated, and actually until we came overseas, you know.
Oh, by the way, before we went in, we had to have a physical training, you know, and I was underweight. Yeah. And I also had a heart murmur. So they put me on limited service, which meant I could not go overseas, which didn't bother me, because if I couldn't go, I know she couldn't go. So that didn't bother me. And as I told you, the chief nurses resented things. So one day when we were in Camp Lee, Virginia, having an excellent time.
Oh, God.
Oh, it was. We couldn't wait to get off duty to go to the officers' club where everybody was dancing and really enjoyed it. The chief nurse, we noticed on the bulletin board, Lieutenant Dorothy Levitsky, Lieutenant Ellen Levitsky scheduled to go overseas. Well, I knew they'd made an error because I was on limited service. So I had all the papers, and I went to the chief nurse to tell her they had made an error. And she wouldn't even bother looking at the papers. She put them down, and she said to me, I want you to go to barracks so-and-so and see Dr. So-and-so. Fine, I picked up the papers. I went to barracks so-and-so and saw Dr. So-and-so, handed him the papers, he put it down. It was a true story. Told me to walk there, I walked. Come back, he said, you're off limited service.
Wow. That quickly?
Didn't bother checking my heart, nothing. We were off limited service.
Wow.
So then we were sent to Camp Dix. Where was it?
Fort Dix.
Fort Dix in New Jersey, get more training, and then the ship came in. And we were the first contingent of nurses to go directly to France. Most of them went to England, then to France.
Wow. And so how does that make you feel, knowing that you were part of that first wave?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We went in a convoy of medical. Our ship was all medics, and it took us 12. We said 12 days. Somebody else says 13 days. So I don't know. I remember 12.
I thought 12.
Yeah. But landed in Cherbourg, and apparently our advance party went to England, so they didn't know what to do with us. So they put a lot of us out on detached service. Dorothy and I were with the 5th General. They had been in England for about 2.5 years before they came to France. So they were, we worked there until our hospital was activated. And we had a large medical surgical tent hospital, the 164th General Hospital.
Wow.
And we were there for a couple of years.
A year.
A year. Yeah, we were there for a year. Time goes on.
Yeah.
And then, you want to tell them anything?
We had one doctor anesthesiologist. They didn't have enough nurse anesthetists. We had 2 Quonset huts, 4 operating tables on each side. So they needed nurse anesthetists. They needed somebody, asked if you wanted like to join, learn it. So I volunteered. Dorothy did, but she didn't like it. She quit. And sodium pentothal was in its infancy then. And of course, I didn't know nothing about drugs, and nurses at that time did not do intravenous's. Different ball game, believe me. But our specialty was nursing care. But anyhow, in 3 days, I was a certified nurse, field-trained nurse anesthetist, and scared to death. You're dealing with lethal drugs.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Wow. And so, I guess let's switch gears a little bit, and then we're going to come back to the history of it all. Being here in Normandy, seeing all of these things where people are holding this entire historical, monumental event in such high regard. What does that make you feel? What brings you back here?
Go ahead.
Actually, I think, I don't know about anybody else, but when I left, I think a little piece of Normandy was in there.
Yeah.
I love to come. We come back every year. And I guess we've come back as long as we can,
We come back to see the place. We come back for the people. Yeah. They're our friends. It's a family. Yeah.
The people of this area, how they've accepted us, it's unbelievable. It's actually unbelievable.
What personal experiences can you tell me about that make it unbelievable for you?
Well, have you ever been kissed by a bishop?
I haven't.
We have. Like Father Leonard, he's so happy to see us. Of course, like I say, we're not of his faith, but we go to mass with the rest of them, and they make us so welcome. They make us
we're
feel
people.
Like we're home, that we've come home.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. I want to tell them about. We were almost court-martialed. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, tell them the story.
Dorothy was on night duty, and it was payday time. You had to sign vouchers. I don't know if you had to sign vouchers now, but we had to sign a voucher, and then the next day or so your check came to you. So she was on night duty, so I went to the pay tent to sign my voucher. So I said, let me sign Dorothy's voucher too. And the poor little guy said, you can't do it, little corporal. And I said, yes, I can. She said, I'm not going to wake her up. Well, it went back and forth, back and forth. I signed the pay voucher. And somehow in Cherbourg, it was the discrepancy in handwriting was picked up. So our colonel was alerted. Of course, she alerted the chief nurse, and she says, gotcha.
Oh, she was happy.
really gotcha. And the next thing we know, somebody came tearing down to us and said, you girls are in trouble. You're going to have a summary court-martial. What do we do?
I said, I didn't do anything. I was sleeping.
They didn't know. They didn't know what it was about. But they knew that we were in trouble. So anyhow, we were told to be in front of the colonel's tent at such and such hour. And not to digress, but back in the States in the 40s, vaudeville was very popular. And there was a Hungarian act, two sisters. They called the Dolly sisters. So when they were announced, they say the Dolly sisters, they twine arms, and they come in kicking and singing, kicking and singing. So we're standing out there and saying, you know, we're going to go to jail. So, you know, we don't know what's going to happen.
I didn't do anything.
So somebody bellers out, bring in the Levitsky sisters. So I looked at Dorothy, I said, oh, what the hell? So we twined
They said,
arms.
why not? And we went in singing and dancing. It's a true story.
And the colonel, he almost fell on his chair. He was laughing so hard. And the Zek arguer looked like he was struck by lightning, and she was purple.
Oh, she was, yeah, she turned.
And when he got our commanding officer, who was the doll, he got up and said, go back to your area, case dismissed.
So we didn't get court-martialed.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh yeah. You know, the whole thing is, you know, it's sometimes it's a little overwhelming. You know, it really is. I mean, we came over to do a job. We did our job.
You have to remember, they were 18-year-old, but they were men, and you had to take care of them. Yeah, yeah, that was the thing.
And did you get a sense of fulfillment for that? You know, being able to contribute your skills to.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Of course. I mean, I would strictly I put them to sleep, and that was it. But Dorothy worked on the wards.
Yeah, but I have to tell them, you know, the Battle of the Bulge and all that. We got all the patients, and then things quieted down, and then the war in Europe was over, and the Germans were going to take our hospital, so they gave us two choices. We could either stay with the Army of this is a true story. We could stay with the Army of Occupation, or go to the CBI, China, Burma, India. Elle and I that night discussed what we really wanted to do, and the next day we asked to see the colonel. He saw us. So I told him that I did not want the Army of Occupation, nor did I want to go to the CBI. I wanted to go home and take piano lessons. He listened.
I wanted to go home and take tap dancing lessons.
And he listened, and about 3 or 4 weeks later, we were on an Army train taking us to the staging area in Marseille to wait for the ship to take us to the CBI. But fortunately, as we got on the ship, the war in Japan was over, so we got to go home. But while we were in Marseille, I wanted to tell you about someone had written a song. Do you want to hear the song?
Sure. Oh, God.
You want to sing it for me?
Every place we go, and we have to sing this song. It's like a signature song. You know.
Oh, Mr. Truman, we have got our points. We are tired of living in these foreign joints. We don't want the CBI. Save that for the other guy. Please, Mr. Truman, why can't we go home? We have bet the Russians and we have crossed the Rhine. We are tired of vodka and drinking Moselle wine. We would like to fraternize, but I said
that's not
very wise. So please, Mr. Truman, why can't we go home? We have conquered Berlin and we have conquered Rome. We have destroyed the master race, so why is there no shipping space? So please, Mr. Truman, why can't we go home? Do you like that?
I like it.
Now, anything else?
Anything else?
Well, actually, do you mind telling us your ages for the record?
Me, I'm 91.
91.
94.
94. You don't look it at all.
Well, actually, she always tries to tell everybody I'm older, but I'm really and truly younger. No, I'm 94.
Yeah.
The secret is to keep going. Don't sit. Keep going. And that's what we do.
If you have a sister like that, believe me, you keep going.
Now, after my husband died, my sister's home, we live in Milford, Delaware. My sister's home here, my home was over here. And I remember my mother reading a book, A House is Not a Home. It was no longer a home, it was a house. So I asked Ellen if I could build onto her home and move in with her, but she was agreeable. So she does the cooking. I work in the yard.
We have a good we have a good support group. We do. Of course, Dottie and I have nobody. It was just Dottie and I. And that's it.
Yeah, but then she has no children. I have no children, and that's why we come over every year and do whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
You have each other.
Huh?
You have each other.
We have each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long, or not how long? Obviously, I know how long you've been together. But you know, how is that relationship? I mean, do you find yourselves in rocky situations over the time?
We have some days.
Oh yeah, it's normal. We're
My
normal
sister has a
people.
habit.
Yeah.
When she has enough of me, she'll say I'm going to my desk. So I know. I mean, I know. What have I done? You know. But no. We interact. We've always been close. We've always been close.
And the surprising thing, we are two different people. I mean, our likes and everything were different, but we get along. She's my sister.
Yeah. You're stuck with me.
You're stuck with me.
And okay, going back to the historical piece of it, what was the most memorable event while you were here, while the war was happening? What stands out in your mind as that? Wow, I will never forget that.
I think it's one patient I had. Like I say, pentothal was a drug he didn't fool around with, and we were taught we had to mix our own drug. It was a powder form then. And then we were taught to put the gas machine on, you know, and monitor the patient and everything. And everything was fine. I never had any problem, but they brought this one guy in. And I started explaining to him, you know, what I was going to do and everything. And you try to, you know, put him with the reeds and everything. And I started the intravenous, and I started the pentothal, and you count back from 100, have them come back. If they hit 96, I mean, that was good, you know. This guy's counting getting down to 80, and I'm putting the setting pentothal, and I called for the captain, and he came over and he said, give it to him, you know. He got down to 32. And I thought, my God, I'll kill him. So then he finally fell asleep, and he didn't wake up for a couple of days. And when he woke up, I mean, once they left the operating room, I was done. I didn't know where they went and what they did. I didn't know. Their post-operative care. And I was told not to go around such a ward because I don't know if I should say it or not. Anyhow, this guy woke up wild. Wild. He was going to kill the little son of a bitch that put him to sleep. He got out the night before and got tanked up on Calvados. And that was a nightmare. That to me, I was so upset. I was so frightened.
Yeah.
You know, here you got a human person you're working on. I was scared to death. I don't think I'll ever forget that. But I always hoped for the rest of my life I'd never meet up with that man. Yeah.
And you? Do you have anything like that?
Well, as I said, they were 18-year-old men, and you took care of them. One in particular stayed longer than most patients, and we became friends, and we were friends for 65 years. He died 2 years ago.
He's the reason we're here. He's the reason we're here. He's the reason we're here.
Oh, yeah. He was in the 82nd Airborne. Well, you know, we were nurses. We had nothing to do with it. About 10 years ago,
Yeah.
he called me at home and wanted to know if Ellen and I would join the 82nd Airborne 407 Club. Why not? And that's why we're here today, because of the 87.
Dottie. C-47.
Oh, C-40, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, we joined, and it was because of him.
And his ashes, they brought his ashes back, and we had a ceremony. In fact, we had a ceremony the other day at his tomb.
And what was his name?
Bill Tucker.
Bill Tucker. And do you know where he was from?
Yeah, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts?
Yeah.
And he was with the 82nd Airborne?
Well, see, he, as I said, they were 18-year-old, but he came home, he went to school, became a lawyer, and he was friendly with John Kennedy, our president. And so after John Kennedy was elected, George was, Bill was,
ICC.
huh?
ICC.
Yeah, he was in the International Commerce Commission. And so I was working in Wilmington, he was in Washington, and he was called back and forth. But he was doing what I was doing, and we became friends. We were friends. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And so, what's the driving force to keep bringing you back here?
I think that for me, it's just being here.
It's because all these people that were in they're family. We felt we're like a family. We hear from them all the time. Yeah.
And another thing, our hospital was, we always said La Haye Point, but they tell us in Ballville.
But
and we came across a picture. It was VE Day, and they had a parade. So somebody in our outfit snapped this picture, and so I don't know how we got hold of it.
I had it.
Somebody sent it to us, so we're taking it back to La Haye Point tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Francine is taking us over there to take this picture. We think it should be in their archives.
And I have a postcard that I must have bought while I was here, but I don't know why, but I bought it, so I'm giving them back the postcard of La Haye Point.
Before the war. Before the war.
Yeah.
That's great.
So so we're going back there tomorrow. Our hospital was in a big cow pasture.
And it was a tent, you said? It was
all tent.
What was that like in terms of the working environment? How would you compare that to something that you would probably see in today's military?
Oh, no comparison. Primitive. Primitive.
But you didn't think of it. You didn't think of it. You were there to do a job. That's what it. But you didn't think of the building or a tent or our tent that we had to sleep in with no mattress.
No.
You know.
We had a folding cot, no mattress, folding cot, one blanket. In fact, it was so cold we used to wear our flannel pajamas. And we have pictures of our flannel pajamas sticking out of our uniforms. And one pillow without a pillowcase, and that was it.
Yeah. But it was our home, and then we were there.
You were young.
And we were young.
You're still young.
Yeah, anything. You're young. Oh, I burned up 2 tents.
I'm sorry?
I burned up 2 tents.
Oh, you burnt 2 tents? How did you do that?
Well, Normandy in the winter is damp. I mean, it goes right through you. I got off early for some reason, so the girls weren't back yet, so I thought I would, warm up the tent. So we had, every day they give you a little bucket with a ration of coal. That had last for 24 hours. So I found some papers around, I put it in, and I put the coal around, and I took a bottle of gin, and I threw in the match. Oh, God. The first time they didn't know, it was an accident.
Yeah, but tell them what happened after the second one.
Somebody squealed, one of the girls squealed on me, and they told us no more tents. If anything else, there'll be 4 cots laying out on the cobblestones.
No tent.
No tent.
Wow.
And one of the good reasons why we come back every year, the people around here have been wonderful to us. I mean, they seem like,
It's overwhelming.
yeah, not only the priest and bishop, but
The citizens.
people like you. Yeah, you're happy to see us.
Absolutely.
And you thank us for being here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do thank you both for being here.
Well, that's what makes you feel better. Like I said, you keep thanking. But the way we feel, like I say, we had a job to do.
And we did it.
our job. We went home.
And, yeah.
Here's a little side topic, and if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But you and I both know how GIs are. and you two were young, attractive nurses that were handling
yes.
all the young guys.
But no fraternizing. No fraternizing.
No, I know the policy, but I'm just saying, how did that interaction? You know, what kind of things did you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis that were just hilarious to you?
Well,
Tell them about the time you were in the Germans came.
Oh. Well, there was a lot of men. Yeah, there was a lot of men, and there was a policy. Well, you know, they were never there permanently. I mean, while they were there, you enjoyed each other. They're going, it's over. You know, it's like a big box of chocolates. Anyhow, I was going with the infantry officer stationed in Carteret, and things are slowing down a little bit. But in the Jersey Islands, there were guns. You know, and we were right across from Jersey Islands. So we were, the two of us, Angel and I went to pick us up in the Jeep. We never went through the front. We always went through the barbed wire. It was easier. You know, the guards were there. You brought a nice bottle of gin, and they'd hold the wire. But they'd say, "What time will you be back?" You know, he said so. So and we went through, and we went there, and we were, you know, with the jukebox, and we were sitting and having a drink and talking, having fun, and the alert went on. The Germans were breaking through. So I think there were 5 or 6 nurses there. So they took us upstairs and put us in closets, and they threw blankets on us and said, "Don't make a sound." And there was a lot of gunfire, and we were scared to death. And here I'm thinking, my sister. So anyhow, we didn't get out of the closet until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And of course we couldn't get back to the hospital because the roads were closed. They were all blocked. So we got back to the hospital. Meanwhile, they had called the hospital to let them know that we were okay. So they took us back, and everybody was, you know, came rushing, are you all right? My sister wasn't among them, and I kept saying, "Where's Dorothy?" And somebody said she's back in the nurses area. So I went back and I'm yelling, "Dorothy, I'm okay, Dorothy," you know. And she came out of the tent and she was crying. And she looked at me and she said, "What in the hell was I supposed to tell your mother, a Jewish girl, being a German war prisoner?" And she took her skinny fist and
pow!
That was my reception. And welcome home.
What could I tell our mother? Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
And so where exactly was that? I mean, you went under the wire to what location for that? I mean,
well, on the other side there was a Jeep waiting for us.
You know, there were a few females, so you know, we were always wanted.
Yeah.
But you didn't go out with anybody unless they had transportation.
Yeah.
That was the key.
Yeah.
If they had transportation, okay, you would go out for the evening.
Oh.
I had a date with this officer from the South, and we just didn't get along. I mean, I didn't get along too well with him. I just didn't care for his, you know, but anyway, I got out of his transportation. We were coming back, and I'm standing there with a helmet lining on and my fatigues on, the boots, and he said to me, "Hold it, Dorothy, don't move." And I looked, he said, "You're beautiful." And I knew what I looked like. I wasn't. So I go and I'm crying, and I said, "Ellen, I hate to hurt him, but I said, I can't go out with him anymore. I just can't."
I stopped taking care. So yeah, she had made another date with him, you know. So he was at the we had a little rinky-tink officers club. He was standing outside, so I went out and I introduced myself. Dorothy said, "Sit down." And I was trying to tell him, you know, there's people in me, there's chemistry, you know. This, you know, I'm going on it real good, you know, and I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at those big softballs, looking at me, and I'm thinking, "Oh no." And then finally he says, "I do declare, I think I had the wrong sister."
And she comes in and tells me.
So I did. I felt so bad. But I went and once when I got home, I said, "Please, don't come back here anymore. Just, please, don't come back
But
here."
had the nerve to come and tell me I was the wrong sister.
Now I'm stuck with them. But I took care of it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say? Any wonderful stories that come to mind that you're just like, you know what, we want to tell this
As
story?
long as we can, we'll be back.
Yeah.
When it comes a time we can't come back, that's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, people were so good to us, and so it's unbelievable. And they bring their children to thank us for being here. I mean, it's
Truthfully, the only thing really upsets me here. I'm fine until I get to Omaha Beach. That cemetery. It gets kills me. We go every year to get our French flags and our American flag, and it just kills me.
Yeah.
I think it's the only thing that, truthfully.
But we're happy that we could do what we did, and we did. That's the only thing that thank God I came over. Yeah, that's it.
Well, we're all very happy that you did what you did also. So how have you held this together for so long? How have you?
You know, the amazing thing is, really looking back, Dorothy, we came back, Dorothy went to work at Veterans Hospital, I got married. But I still I worked in our local hospital. We never talked.
No, it was over.
Not a word, never mentioned. In the first place, I was his first lieutenant. My husband was staff sergeant. You didn't talk to no. I mean, there was a little, I don't know what it was with him. I mean, he didn't like to hear anything about it. And not only that, you didn't talk until, I think it was around 04, when the Great Generation came out, and then, but otherwise we never.
We never talked about it. It was over.
When we were alone, we never talked.
Well, actually, that brings up an interesting question, because it's pretty common knowledge that, by and large, the younger generation in the United States doesn't seem to have a clear picture or understanding of what's in
Well, we were asked quite a bit after in 04 if we'd speak to the school kids, the seniors and everything. They didn't even know Mr. Truman. They didn't know Franklin Roosevelt.
No.
They didn't know anything. And it's like in fact, we spoke to this one class, and the principal came out and said, "How'd you make out?" I said, "I think they thought we came out of Mars." The way they looked at us is, they don't get it.
No.
They don't get it.
It's different over here.
And it's like one kid said, "My grandfather was in France." He said he never talked about it.
And then when they say,
"Why are you talking about it?"
Well, they'd say, "Grandfather."
Wow.
I think it's lacking in their education.
Well, actually, that was kind of my question. Is here, it seems like every French person that I've interviewed about this is something that they told every generation.
You know why? We came here. They're the ones that bore the brunt. But we came here, and then we went home. To me, that's my
that
version.
was it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that if these war stories had been more circulated earlier on, that maybe our education on that would be a little higher?
Oh.
I think,
What?
parts of it's too painful. It's too painful.
Yes, you don't talk about it.
Like we go wherever we're asked. In fact, the 23rd, they asked we got to speak in front of the Red Hatters. Our age, and not quite our age group, but older people. We go for the lighter things, the funny things.
The lighter part. We don't. That we shall never forget.
It's
but
here.
why make you miserable?
Yeah. So I think it's another thing. These kids, these people, parents, the fathers didn't tell their children. It was too painful.
Living among the medical community as I did for weeks was a huge revelation to me. I'd never been hospitalized before. I had never seen the extraordinary daily kindness and heroism of nurses up close. I had never depended on them. For weeks, I was completely dependent on them. I had only one real day and night of pain in the hospital after surgery, and it was a giant order of magnitude, the worst pain I have ever experienced. It is actually an ordeal that many post-surgical patients go through, and I cannot get into the details now because it is just too gross. Trust me, I'm not kidding about that. And if you've been through it, you know what I'm talking about. A nurse named John Frank Ellis got me through that night. It was, in its way, as hard a night for John as it was for me. I've never been more dependent on anyone in my adulthood and never been more grateful.
Greetings and greetings, my fellow YouTube nurses. Where have you guys been at? Just kidding, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I've been super busy with my mom's birthday, my birthday, just turned 26. Just kidding. And quinceañera for my sister's birthday. It was huge, humongous. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a girl. It's like a sweet 16, but for Mexicans, it's a huge, fat, it's like a wedding. People all there with their dresses and soccer shoes. No, but it's pretty fat, humongous. My sister just turned 15. I love you, my little sis. And also been busy with school and finals. Like I said, I'm about like basically quantity. I don't like cranking out videos. I'm all about quality, okay? Quality. I can't even say the word. That's how Mexican I am. And like I said, I've been busy with promoting stuff. There's been a lot of people trying to connect with me. So coming up, I'm going to be doing a lot more big things. And last but not least, Scrubs Magazine. You guys know who that is. Scrubs Magazine. I want to do a shout out. Thanks for doing your thing. They actually going to put me in their magazines coming up in the next issue. They want to talk about Nurse Mendoza. That's me. And they want to put me out there, and they want to talk about who I am, what I do, what my videos are all about, all that good stuff. So a shout out to Nurses or Scrubs Magazine out there. It's gonna be come out in the next issue. So I'm excited about that. You guys will see me all up in there blasted. Yeah, so it's good stuff. It's coming real soon. So get ready for that. So here's the question, y'all. The most important question that I got from a lot of my followers and subscribers. We're talking about how is it being a minority. Tell me why I'm looking in the sky like this. What is it being a minority, Mexican American, Latino, Chicano, everybody out there who is a different culture, different race? How is it being a nurse? What are your experiences? That was my question. So I said, you know what? Beautiful. Let's go ahead and do a video on that, okay? So I said, I'm going to just crank one out. So I'm going to give you like 3 of experiences that I had gone through as Mexican American, Chicano nurse. And sorry if my voice, it's a little raspy, okay? Came back from Vegas, kind of lost it, so I'm coming back to reality. So my first experience I had was with this old little lady, elderly lady. She's about 7 years old. I remember getting a report, went in there. She was very sweet. I remember, very thin, frail, small, sweet lady. Looked at me and said, "I don't want you as my nurse." I said, "Dang." I said, "Why?" I was like, "My name is so forth," and I told her very nice. I was polite, and she didn't want me as a nurse. She said, I want a female nurse who's not a minority." Dang, she had an accent and everything. And I told her, I was like, well, what's going on? What is it? And I remember she just was racist. Plain and simple, racist. She didn't want a dark-skinned nurse taking care of her. And I looked at her, I'm like, dang, what is up with the world nowadays? Why do we still got to judge and be stereotypical? And why do we got to, you know, do all that stuff? So I went in there, talked to her, and I even asked her why. But I just let it go. I let it go. It hurt me. I remember that was my first day on the floor as a nurse. Well, not the first day, but first couple months. And I realized, okay, patients are right. I can't go against their word. So I said, I'll get you another nurse. I remember that kind of affected me. I went home and I'm like, dude, am I really in the right field? I mean, people are going to look at me like, you know, I'm all of a sudden an alien, I guess. She looked at me like I was just from another planet. It was weird. But I remember that kind of affected me. I went home and I said, no, I can't let this bother me. I can't let this hurt me. So that was one of my experiences. It wasn't too big of a thing, but my second one really was. I remember it was a dude. He was about 60 years old. No, he was actually older. He was about 80 or 90. Very, very old individual. And got a report, talked to him, very standoffish. I remember going in there and he goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm your nurse. I'll be taking care of you." I'm just me being me. Charismatic, outgoing, and just fun. He did not perk. Didn't even move one lip. Didn't even smile. And he said, "Well, did anybody tell you I was in World War II, Pearl Harbor? And I was like, okay, what's that have to do with anything? And I remember he specifically was talking about how he fought off these people who were minority. And he basically looked at me like I was from Pearl Harbor or something. And I was like, yeah, we fought people, you know what, they kind of remind me, you kind of look like them. Dude, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm not, you know, Asian descent. So I was thinking, why is he saying this? Whatever. I brushed my shoulders up. I thought he was joking. But I just it kind of bothered me a little bit. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, you know, I just didn't feel very comfortable around them and this and that. And it's part of the war. That's what we got to do. We got to kill them people. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, another person who's racist. And this was about 8 months after I had my first racist episode. So I looked at the guy, I said, you know what? You know, I bet you feel comfortable if I was a female, right? And he goes, no. I bet you feel comfortable if I got you another nurse. He goes, damn straight. You need to leave and get me another nurse. Because if you weren't going to say it, I was going to say it. I swear to baby Jesus. Once he said that, I just felt like another ton of bricks just hit me. I'm like, man, what am I doing wrong? But honestly, when it comes down to it, it's not you as a person. And it's not being Latino, it's not being black, it's not being East Indian, it's not being Asian descent. It's just people who grow up in that mentality, have that mentality. They stay adapted to that. Instead of changing, they just stay who they are. So I remember that was the second episode, and I had a few other ones before, but honestly, what don't kill you makes you stronger, and you just learn from it. People don't change, but you as a nurse have to adapt. If you're any type of descent, Mexican, like I said, if you're Asian, or if you're East Indian, if you're black, any type of nationality, any race, you just have to adapt like a chameleon. And like I said, it's not people who are intelligent that make it. It's not people who have money that make it. It's people who adapt that make anything possible. Okay, it could be nursing, it could be life, work, it could be family, it could be social life, it can be, you know, it's just anything. You just have to learn to adapt. So, you know, I told the guy, well, thank you for telling me what he said. I'll get you another nurse. I just laughed it off, never let it get to me. And I just realized, like, why do people do this? So I remember my last episode was awesome because it just happened 2 weeks ago. A little old lady, you know, I assessed her, took care of her, and the biggest thing that affected me the most was when I had to give her a bed bath. She didn't take it personal, but she's like, I don't want a bed bath right now. And I told her, well, if you don't want one, I don't have to, you know, give you one. It's like, no, it's just that it's you and I don't know you that well. I said, okay, well, we don't have to give you one. So I remember giving her a bed bath later after she got to know me, and I assessed her, you know, gave her meds. You know, after a couple hours, she felt a little more comfortable. And here's the best part about it. After the 12-hour shift, she leans over and says, you have been the most caring nurse. You have been the only nurse that actually talks to me, takes care of me, and is able to understand who I am as a person. Dude, that hit me even harder. And that's beautiful that she looked past my skin color, past my facial hair, past this Mexican attitude, and past everything else, past the tattoos, because I got judged a lot for that. And she looked at me and just said, please come back tomorrow. I want you to take care of me. That right there was the best feeling you can get. And a lot of people who are racist, they change their outlook when you take care of them. They see, okay, it's not about the color, the tattoos, and who you are as a person. It's about the holistic care, the heart you have as a nurse, and that personal, you know, ways that you are to treat the patient, the way you assess them, the way you care for them, and also the way you communicate. And all that as a nurse makes you the best damn nurse you could ever be. And they look past the race, the nationality, and the culture. So that was probably one of the best experiences I've had. I wanted to share that with you guys, my fellow YouTube nurses, and that was awesome. So on that note, I'm going to end it right there, but I'm going to crank out some more videos. Like I said, check out Scrubs Magazine. They're going to do an editorial on me. I'm going to be somewhere in the magazine. I'm not sure yet where, but it's going to be on the next issue. Also, new things are coming up. I'm doing big things promoting with these people. I'm trying to connect. So all my nurses, don't forget to like, subscribe, share the video, talk about your experience. I want to know you as a nurse, minority or not, what racist issues you've dealt with. Also, I want to put in, follow me on Twitter, that's YouTube Nurse. Follow me on Instagram, that's Nurse Mendoza 7. And if you have any questions, put them on there, hit me up. My fellow YouTube nurses, peace.
Hello friends, this is Sam Chaney reporting for We Are Change Fresno TV. Today is November 12th, 2014, and we're out here in front of Kaiser, Fresno, California, on Herndon and what's the cross street?
Fresno.
And Fresno. And we're here with the union reps for the strike, the nurses' strike against the Kaiser management. And so can you explain a little bit about the nurses' position and why you're out here striking today, please? Oh, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Tony Carrion. I'm a registered nurse here. Been here 17 years. First thing we want the community to understand is we are not striking for more money. And we did not abandon our patients. We give 10-day strike notice. And so there are nurses in there taking care of patients. And we also have a clause in our contract. If there's something abnormal happening and people need to come out and get us, they will come get us and we will go back in. But we are not striking for money. We want everyone to be very clear about that. We're striking for safety and other issues that Amy will talk about.
Okay, what are some of your other issues?
My name is Amy Graywell. I'm also a registered nurse. Been here 11 years. We are striking for patient safety and nurses' safety, and as well as public safety. As you guys know, Ebola is the biggest, hottest thing right now. We want Kaiser to train everyone and have the proper equipment available for every nurse to be used in case we do have that person. Kaiser is saying we'll never have it. You never know. Cannot say never. We want to be well prepared. Other thing is, Kaiser is making net profits, $3.3 billion in the last 9 months. We want that money to be reused in the patient cares, patient services. We're cutting services, we're cutting our equipment and everything else. We want them to put that money back in to use it for the patient care. This is who we're fighting for. Nurses are the part of this patient care. We are the first person the patient sees and the last person the patient sees. So we want that to be used. We love our patients. We're not abandoning them again. Kaiser had a well notice, and we will be back to work tomorrow morning.
Well, you know, that's what I heard a radio commercial on the way over here. The corporate propaganda says that nurses are leaving their patients to die. What do you have? I mean, it's outrageous propaganda, but what do you have to say to that?
That's corporate propaganda. Exactly that. It's corporate propaganda. And every management is an RN as well, so how are they letting the patients die?
And then another question I had, how do you feel about the corporate Kaiser being a non-profit when they're not providing adequate charity care, which is written up in a few different articles out there that I've read this morning? Should they even be qualified as a non-profit at this point? And they also say that their financial statements are not transparent, and that's very concerning to me because they're pretty much tax exempt.
Exactly, that's what we're saying. They're making $3 billion, which they're saying, of course, it's not true. It is a public knowledge that they're making. The CEO makes $77 a minute. How is that fair?
Wow.
A minute. And we think Bill Gates is rich. Can you imagine this guy? This guy, so that's where we want the money to put back into patient care. That's where all nurses, that's why we're all united. And we want that money to be back into patient care. Not for us, not for anyone else. Our patients care. ED, patients get admitted and they're staying there for more than 24 hours. We have beds available. Why aren't they admitting those patients to the floors? That we nurses, that our job is to care for them, and we're more than willing to do so.
So they're actually cutting back access to care in the name of corporate profits.
Well, they will never say that. We nurses can see it.
All right. Anything else to say about it?
No, I think we covered all that. We just really want the community to know we've never abandoned patients. Our licensure is for patient advocacy. That's why we aren't in a labor partnership with Kaiser. We're labor, but we're not in the partnership with them. And we also want you to know we have other unions out here walking with us in support of what we're here to do.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Persistent.